Modern liberalism, often called social liberalism, emerged in the mid-19th century as a response to the social and economic transformations brought about by industrialization, urbanization, and mass democracy. Classical liberalism had successfully challenged absolutism and established civil liberties and constitutional government, but its emphasis on limited government and free markets increasingly appeared inadequate to address systemic poverty, economic insecurity, and unequal life chances. Modern liberals did not reject liberalism's core commitment to freedom. Instead, they asked a different question. What does liberty mean in a society where formal rights exist, but large numbers of people lack the real capacity to exercise them? Retention of civil and political rights. Modern liberalism retains the foundational achievements of classical liberalism. It affirms freedom of speech, religion and association, political equality and democratic participation, the rule of law and constitutional government, legal protections against arbitrary state power. Crucially, modern liberals do not abandon individual rights. Rather, they argue that rights are often hollow without social and economic conditions that make their exercise possible. A right to vote means little without education. Freedom of contract is limited when one party faces desperation. Freedom of expression is weakened by extreme inequality of opportunity. Thus, modern liberalism reframes liberty as not only formal freedom, but effective freedom. Expansion of state responsibilities. The defining shift of modern liberalism is its willingness to expand the role of the state beyond the night watchman model. Where classical liberals viewed the state primarily as an umpire enforcing neutral rules, modern liberals view it as a protector and enabler of individual freedom. This expansion occurs in three interrelated areas. 1. Social welfare. Modern liberals argue that the state has a responsibility to protect citizens from risks that are not reasonably avoidable through individual effort alone. These include unemployment, disability, and illness, old age, extreme poverty. Social welfare policies such as unemployment insurance, public health care, pensions, and social safety nets are justified not as charity, but as conditions for genuine autonomy. Individuals who are constantly threatened by destitution cannot meaningfully plan their lives or exercise freedom. 2. Economic regulation. Unlike classical liberals, modern liberals accept that unregulated markets can generate coercive power relations. Employers, monopolies, and financial institutions may exercise power that rivals or exceeds that of the state. As a result, modern liberalism supports labor protections and union rights, regulation of monopolies and unfair competition, consumer protections, progressive taxation. These interventions are not intended to abolish markets, but to civilize them, ensuring that economic freedom does not undermine political and social freedom. 3. Social justice. Modern liberalism introduces social justice as a legitimate concern of political authority. While classical liberals emphasized equality before the law, modern liberals argue that deep structural inequalities prevent fair participation in social life. Justice, in this view, requires attention not only to rules, but to outcomes, especially when those outcomes systematically disadvantage particular groups through no fault of their own. Key thinkers in modern liberalism. Modern liberalism is associated with several influential thinkers who reinterpreted liberal principles for a changing world. T.H. Green. T.H. Green argued that freedom should not be understood merely as the absence of restraint. True freedom, he claimed, is the ability to develop one's moral and rational capacities. This requires education, health, and minimum material security. Green famously rejected the idea that the state is always a threat to liberty. Instead, he argued that state action can expand freedom when it removes obstacles that prevent individuals from acting as autonomous agents. John Stuart Mill, later works. While Mill is often associated with classical liberalism, his later writings increasingly align with social liberalism. Mill came to recognize that formal liberty alone was insufficient in the face of economic inequality and social dependency. He supported labor unions, limited redistribution, public education, greater concern for social conditions affecting liberty. Mill's later thought reflects a transition from a purely negative conception of freedom toward a more socially grounded one. John Rawls. John Rawls is the most influential modern liberal theorist of the 20th century. His book, A Theory of Justice, 1971, provides the most systematic philosophical defense of social liberalism. Rawls sought to reconcile liberty, equality, and fairness within a single moral framework. Rawls's theory of justice. Rawls proposes that a just society is one whose basic institutions would be chosen by rational individuals under conditions of fairness. To model this, he introduces the original position and the veil of ignorance, in which individuals design social rules without knowing their own class, talents, or social position. From this thought experiment, Rawls derives two principles of justice. 1. Equal basic liberties. Each person must have an equal right to the most extensive set of basic liberties compatible with the same liberties for others. These include political rights, freedom of thought, and freedom of association. This principle preserves classical liberal rights as non-negotiable. 2. The difference principle. Rawls's most distinctive claim is that inequality is not inherently unjust. However, inequalities are justified only if they benefit the least advantaged members of society. In other words, inequality is acceptable if it improves everyone's position. Inequality is unjust if it entrenches disadvantage. This principle directly challenges both laissez-faire liberalism and strict egalitarianism. The state as protector, not neutral umpire. In modern liberalism, the state is no longer seen as a passive referee. Instead, it is a protector of fair conditions under which individuals can genuinely exercise freedom. This does not mean unlimited government. Modern liberals continue to insist on constitutional constraints, civil liberties, democratic accountability. However, they reject the idea that neutrality requires inaction. A state that refuses to intervene in the face of structural injustice, modern liberals argue, is not neutral. It is complicit. Conclusion. Modern social liberalism represents an adaptation rather than a rejection of liberal principles. It maintains individual rights and constitutionalism while recognizing that freedom requires social foundations. By expanding state responsibilities in welfare, regulation, and social justice, modern liberalism seeks to ensure that liberty is not merely legal, but livable. Its central claim is clear: a free society must do more than refrain from oppression. It must actively secure the conditions under which individuals can truly be free.